now. Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Debate with Sam and Tate, brought to you by drroto.com. Get your daily prescription of fantasy sports. This episode is brought to you by WinView Games, the nation's sports prediction leader and home for pregame and live prop contests. You can play against your league mates, you can play against your family, or you can go ahead and play against your co-host. And finally, settle the debate on who knows their stuff the best. This week on Thursday Night Football, we have the Broncos versus the Cleveland Browns. Very excited for this matchup. Go ahead and head over to winview.tv/doc and get up to $100 match. $100. Isn't that crazy? I love it. Ooh. Match your first deposit when you go ahead and sign up. They have so many fun prop bets and the setup is fantastic. So please go ahead and head over to winview.tv/doc. Again, $100 to match your first deposit. Derek, how are you on Buy-Mageddon week? That is what it is going down in the news for. I don't want to call it that. That's what people are calling it. That's what the kids are calling it these days.
I'm not. No. You came up with that and then you stepped off of it. You decided to go ahead.
I didn't come up with it. It's literally written into like 3 articles I've seen so far on different platforms. It's by
Look, you have to be able to fully commit to something when you go for it. Like,
don't talk to me about commitment.
I know you have commitment issues. It's fine. Like when I decided to go ahead and fully do a WWE Rock promo from 1999 at a karaoke bar, I had to fully commit to the character. I could not sit there and break it at any one point. Otherwise, it would have been completely lost. I would have been booed and probably kicked out of the bar. So instead, people bought me drinks and we're saying, if you smell what the Rock is cooking for the rest of the night. Boom! Anyway.
Back to football. We have 6 teams on a bye. The Bills are on a bye. Cowboys, Vikings, Steelers, Chargers, Jags. There's a lot of really good players that are on a bye this week. But not only that, there's a lot of players that are injured that we will go through as well. I mean, I'm looking at my lineups in multiple leagues and I'm just like, I guess I just take the loss. Like there's just too many players that are gone and I'm not going to drop half of my team just so that I can get a starting roster this week. It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody that's playing fantasy football, in particular, anybody that loves it and probably has more than one team, is dealing with some sort of horror story as far as who's unavailable this week. So we have to be able to decipher it, though, right? And in particular, let's kind of start with the situation with the Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
No Baker Mayfield.
Nope. It is Case Keenum week.
Both running backs, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb are both out with calf injuries. They both have calf injuries. What's going on? I thought, is the calf the new hamstring or something?
I God, I hope not. Although I would rather just have no injuries. This is ridiculous. No, there's so many players that are out on both sides of the ball too. Defensively, they have a lot of players that are out. Malcolm Smith is out.
Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Joke.
Yes, the favorite one that you have there. Mac Wilson is also out. I'm not going to butcher that name right now. I will not do that to that man. I would feel terrible doing it. But Teddy Bridgewater on the other side of the ball in this matchup is also listed as questionable, probably a game-time decision. So it could be a Drew Lock versus Case Keenum night for Thursday Night Football. Let that sink in for a second. And they've also got multiple players that are injured on defense as well. Aaron Patrick, Baron Browning, it's just bad. It's a bad week.
It is kind of bad. But so how do you take advantage of this, right?
Yes. So how do you take advantage of this matchup?
We're looking at D'Ernest Johnson and Demetric Felton as probably the 2 backs for Cleveland that are going to see a significant bump in snaps, touches, etc. I think they're both worth a start. I really do. A spot start, in particular with 6 teams on a bye this week and a host of other injuries. I really do believe that they're flex worthy. Can I predict who's going to see more work? If I was a betting man, I'd go with D'Ernest Johnson. But Felton, I thought that Felton has shown some things as far as some big play capabilities, in particular in the passing game. Is it within the realm of possibility that Case Keenum comes into the game tonight and looks to check it down to Demetric Felton? possible. So I think both will have a role, and I'm comfortable rolling both out in deeper leagues.
Yeah.
But yeah, not ideal to say the very least.
No, definitely not ideal. But again, so many teams on a bye, so many injuries. If you just need a person who's starting at the position, at least you know that they're a warm body that you know is going to start and likely get touches. I like both of them as well. And then in terms of wide receivers, they're hurt there too. Obviously, Jarvis Landry is still out. Odell Beckham is still questionable for tonight. Donovan Peoples-Jones is the wide receiver to start tonight. He is the guy. I mean, he did well last week too.
He did.
He had 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards passing. It's just he did all that on 5 targets, 4 catches. So
right. I mean, and then you're looking on the other side for the Denver Broncos. You were talking about, unsung heroes or spot starts. I mean, how about Tim Patrick? Tim Patrick continues to do his thing. Now, granted, one thing you want to keep an eye on, which I'm not sure if there's been an official ruling made yet, but Jerry Jeudy could certainly, he's eligible to come off of injured reserve, but it's looking like he's probably not going to be available. So I'm comfortable rolling out Tim Patrick for yet another week.
Yes.
And even if it is Drew Lock under center, I'm still going to have confidence in someone like Cortland Sutton. So
absolutely. I mean, I think at the very least they're going to be able to get open on this against this defense that, again, it has a lot of holes in it this week, just with dealings with so many injuries. So I like Cortland Sutton this week, and I like Tim Patrick this week in this matchup as well.
Yeah, and I do believe that there's an opportunity to potentially do some damage for Odell Beckham Jr. I'm really interested to see, given that Odell's a go tonight, to see if him and Case Keenum click better than him and Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, that would be nice to know. It would be nice to see some sort of connection.
Well, I'm not gonna sit here and suggest that Baker's been playing, super poorly or anything like that. I mean, he's also been battling through a torn labrum on his non-throwing shoulder, but that's still, you can't say that doesn't have an effect, right?
No, it does. And I mean, as someone that knows people that have dealt with torn labrums, you have labrums in your shoulders and in your hips, and they're something you can move through, but it is a big pain management situation, and the best situation is to go and have the surgery. But if it's on his non-throwing shoulder, I could see Baker toughing it through the rest of the season, but it is going to be a tough sledding for him going forward.
Could it affect your throwing motion? Can it affect little things like pinpoint accuracy? Certainly it can. So, but we're not going to see Baker. Hopefully Baker is going to, see his shoulder progress with a week off. So I think the Browns are probably making the right decision tonight. It's really 2 teams that started off pretty hot to start the year. I mean, I think the Broncos won their first 3 games. They've lost their last 3. Now the Browns started off 3-1 after losing to Kansas City in week number 1, and now they've lost their last 2 games. So this is really kind of a crossroads game for both teams. Even though I'm kind of interested tonight, I'm also kind of like, well, I don't really have a lot of fantasy skin in the game because everybody's hurt.
Everybody's hurt. And I mean, it just sucks because we've had such good Thursday night games, and this is not shaping up to be the nail biter that the rest of them have been.
I mean, there's been a lot of great primetime games this year.
Who knows? Maybe this is going to be like one of the best Thursday night games, and we're all just poo-pooing it for no reason at all.
I mean, speaking of primetime games, I mean, primetime performers. I don't know if that's a segment. I think I stole that from NFL Primetime. But anyway, Derrick Henry in the Monday Night Football battle between the Titans and the Buffalo Bills, and Josh Allen slipping on a 4th and inches quarterback sneak. Derrick Henry, is it safe to say that he's easily the best running back in the National Football League?
Easily. If you're drafting today, there isn't a person that you could, I mean, maybe there's some people that would make arguments for other running backs, but I feel like they'd be few and far between to say that they wouldn't take Derrick Henry number 1 overall.
Every year I've wanted to, because I play in so many PPR leagues, right?
Yeah.
So we both do.
We play in a lot of leagues. Yeah.
Yeah. It's easy to overlook him or maybe not put him at the top of the list just strictly because he doesn't catch passes. Like that's not his game. Like traditionally, I don't think he has a season yet where he's caught more than 25 passes in a season. Like that's just not Derrick Henry's strength.
No.
He's capable, but it's just not his strength. You're not having him run angle routes and stuff like that.
No.
He is a throwback breed of a running back that you just hand the football to and he wears you down. But human beings that big should not be able to move that fast. Like,
it's terrifying.
He's a runaway train.
He is. He's a fridge with amazing legs. Like he literally will just pummel people, and the way that he extends the play as well. I mean, you saw players bounce off of him last week, just like ping pong balls.
Who's a defensive tackle and weighs over 300 pounds. He ran through him on his way to the end zone.
Yeah, feel bad. Gosh, the bruises after playing against Derrick Henry must be brutal.
He runs through 300-pound defensive linemen, and he outruns cornerbacks at 250 pounds. He's something special. And, if you ever wondered who was going to kind of take the mantle of maybe the best running back of his generation, I certainly think he's making one hell of a case right now. I mean, it's entirely possible that he is going to have the all-time rushing record for a single season. I mean, granted, it's an extended season, because everybody else has been playing prior on 16 games per season. Now there's an extra regular season game. So obviously an extra game worth of touches. I think he will probably get the record this year. It's just, but the run that he's put together after running for 2,000 yards last year, I think he's running his way into Canton, Ohio at the end of when he decides to hang it up.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. Let's stay with the Titans and let's stay with the game and their matchup this week just to cover a couple more players. I mean, the Titans are also dealing with both their receivers still banged up. A.J. Brown and Julio Jones are still listed as questionable. I think I'm a little bit more worried about Julio getting started just because he's been dealing with the injury a bit longer, I feel. And his hamstring, man, last year it was a problem too. So for me, I'm a little bit more hesitant on him. He did not practice at all yesterday. And hopefully A.J. Brown can get it going because I do like a receiver in this game because the Chiefs are not that efficient at defending against the pass.
Well, you say that until we saw what they did last week against Taylor Heineke and Terry McLaurin. I actually thought that the Chiefs defense showed some signs of life
of life, but not.
They blanked the Washington football team in the second half.
But it's the Washington football team. So I feel like
I'm not trying to, sit here and say that the Kansas City Chiefs are a juggernaut on the defensive side of the football. I'm just simply suggesting that that they could provide a little bit more resistance than anticipated. But I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair. I think Vegas has it the same way. I think the over-under line has been put at like 56 points or something. That's high for an NFL game.
Definitely. But I mean, I think if both those receivers are out, that's going to look pretty bleak. And then maybe you've got Anthony Ferkser. That's a good pass catcher that you could throw in there. I mean, it's not like they're not a team that is throwing the ball as much as others where you're looking at, of these three wide receivers, any of them could be the guy this week. It doesn't typically happen with the Titans. So if anything, I'm a little bit wary of who to get the start here. But again, on a week that's got so many buys and so many players hurt, you're looking for anyone that's going to be starting. So it's definitely a situation to watch with those questionable receivers, but hopefully can find some signs of life going into the matchup.
Let's just say if A.J. Brown or Julio Jones aren't a go, I'm going Chester Rogers is the guy that I'll roll out there in a pinch because we kind of got that, answers to the test a couple weeks ago when both Julio and A.J. Brown were inactive. But I think A.J. Brown played through a sickness this past week, so I think he's going to be available. And, the Titans defense, I mean, they did give up quite a few points to the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football, although they were able to come up with stops here and there in big moments. But make no mistake, I think that they're going to have a hard time, in particular on the back end. They're really banged up at corner, which that's not what you want when you are about to face off against Patrick Mahomes and obviously Tyreek Hill and the rest of the crew there for Kansas City.
Who Tyreek Hill is listed as questionable. He was dealing with a quad injury last week, and he was still able to suit up and still able to get a touchdown and 76 yards with 9 catches last week. So I think he's going to be fine if they're just keeping him out of practice just to keep him fresh for the game, which is what I'm guessing they're doing there. But also Travis Kelce's dealing with a neck injury, and he's listed as questionable as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the two of the most dynamic pass catchers in the NFL, and obviously one of the most transcendent talents we've ever seen at quarterback. But this offense does look different, vastly different. If Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce are not 100%, and with them both a little dinged up, we'll see if this affects their offensive approach whatsoever. So,
I mean, it could affect it, but we've seen Patrick Mahomes make every other receiver available and usable in terms of getting them open and available. I mean, so Byron Pringle had 3 for 3 last week, so he had 8.5 fantasy points. Demarcus Robinson had more targets. He had 6 targets with 3 catches and a touchdown last week. Mecole Hardman had 4 catches on 5 targets and 62 yards. So if for whatever reason Sunday morning comes out that Tyreek Hill is out, that Travis Kelce is out, all 3 of these receivers to me are startable at a flex position.
Yeah, I personally would love to see Josh Gordon get a little bit more involved.
Sure.
But, I mean, he did just arrive, so it's hard to understand.
He just got off the plane. He's got to still unpack.
It's hard to see exactly what his role was going to be. We saw him it felt like we saw him more on the field 2 weeks ago than we did this past week. But we'll see if his role expands, in particular if Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce are limited or out in any sort of capacity. So,
definitely.
But on the back end, though, I think that whoever is going to be catching passes for Kansas City is going to have success, because I just, Jack Revett Jenkins, Elijah Molden, Borders, their other corner. I'm just not really sold on any of these guys being able to slow down the Kansas City Chiefs, even though they do have pretty good safety play there in Tennessee.
Yeah. So there's definitely going to be a couple options for you guys there with the Chiefs in terms of players to reach deep down to get into your lineup for, again, a week that is looking pretty bleak. But let's talk about the Washington football team against the Packers this week, because I do like J.D. McKissic this week in terms of someone that is a deeper grab to throw into a lineup. He had eight rushing attempts for 45 yards. He had 8 catches last week for 65 yards. He had himself a good week last week against the Chiefs. And I feel like, given Terry McLaurin is questionable and Antonio Gibson are both questionable, McKissic, at least he gets used both in rushing and passing. So you have kind of a little bit of both with him. Definitely a player to look to if you're hurting in terms of this week.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's also worth noting, I particularly think that if Terry McLaurin's a go, that I think Terry McLaurin has a pretty big week. No Jair Alexander. He is on the injured reserve list for the Green Bay Packers. And the Packers actually have not been giving up a ton of yardage through the air so far this season. But then again, McLaurin feels like he's kind of due for a big game. But if McLaurin's not a go, then yeah, I think McKissic's going to see a ton of work. I'm with you on that. I think McKissic will get his regardless. But he will see a bump in work if McLaurin is unavailable. And if McLaurin's not a go, I would actually consider rolling out De'Ami Brown, the rookie out of North Carolina, as kind of a spot start.
I also like Ricky Seals-Jones a lot this week. I wrote about him in my Stockwatch article this week. I feel like he's someone that, until Logan Thomas returns, and given there's a lot of players that are beat up in this situation, I feel like he's someone that could have a steady floor, especially this week against the Packers when they're still going to be playing from behind. And he did have success last week with Taylor Heineke. He had 4 catches on 6 targets for 58 yards and a touchdown. So at the very least, I feel like he's going to get the looks that you're going to need for the volume there.
Yeah, Washington has played from behind in every single game so far this season. So, and I expect the same to be happening against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, because right now the Washington football team allows the most yards through the air of any team in the league on a per game basis. So I expect Aaron Rodgers to have a nice week. Washington has no answer whatsoever for Devontae Adams, but I'm also okay with rolling out Alan Lazard. Like, I just expect Rodgers to have a marked amount of success against that Washington secondary.
Looking at the Packers side of the ball on this one, and knock on wood, luckily everyone's looking pretty okay over there. I don't want to speak too soon, but in terms of having to make a quick shift at different positions, everything looks okay.
MVS just pulled his hamstring on his way to the fridge.
He's already on IR. He's already on IR.
No,
he's the only one that's on IR. But I'm looking at AJ Dillon in terms of someone that maybe could be flex worthy in this matchup, just because I feel like if they're going to get ahead early and maybe they're not going to be dishing it to Aaron Jones over and over again, AJ Dillon is getting a lot of rushing attempts, and
more run. Yeah,
he's getting a lot more run. He had 11 attempts last week on 59 yards. They're getting him more into the mix. They're trying to get that Jamal Williams situation back where, they can give Aaron Jones a bit of a break. So I feel like AJ Dillon is someone that you could even flex this week in very deep leagues and see a semi-decent floor. I mean, he didn't have an amazing week last week, but against the Bengals, he had 17.9 fantasy points there. And he even had just over 10 points against Pittsburgh the week before that. So I feel like he's someone that you could use in a pinch.
No, I'm with you on that. AJ Dillon, it's encouraging, not very encouraging for Aaron Jones shareholders, but he is somebody that I'm okay rolling out in a spot if you're really desperate in a deeper league. So yeah, no, I see where you're going with this. The backup running backs in both scenarios for both teams. JD McKissick, AJ Dillon, fire him in there.
Hey. You got to play to win the game, and if they have a heartbeat and the likelihood that they could see touches, they're getting a start this week. You cannot be shy on those things.
You're making me think, if you were a coach, Sam, that the only criteria that you would have to put players out on the football field is, hey, come here, and you put like 2 fingers on their neck just to make sure that they have a pulse, and then it's like, Coach Sam, get in there, it's fine.
You good? You got shoes on? Okay, get in there. Like, if they don't even need full pads. If they're wearing shoes, they're getting out there.
All right, yeah, that criteria. Hashtag, I don't even know what the hashtag with that. I'll let you do that.
Hashtag play to win the game. I don't know.
There we go.
Yeah. Hashtag we play to win the game. Hashtag do what you got to do. I think another game that I'm kind of looking at in terms of a couple players I'd like to throw in as just in cases. I like Hunter Renfrow this week against the Eagles. That matchup I like a lot. Just in terms of volume, usage, he's had a steady floor of targets, over 5 targets a game at the very least this entire season. And I think his lowest yards he had was just this past weekend against Denver. And I like the Philadelphia matchup for him a lot more than that. So I think at the very least, at least double-digit fantasy points for him in terms of 10 or more.
When it comes to this individual matchup against Philadelphia, they've actually been pretty good through the air. So I'm not 100% sure that I would want to roll out Hunter Renfrow. I'm actually going to disagree with you on this one.
That's fine. You're allowed to.
I mean, it's, if you're in a deep league and Renfrow working out of the slot, like, yeah, sure. I just, I feel like there's other options that I feel a little bit better about. I know that the Eagles just gave up, quite a few yards and points to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week, but that's the Bucs. So, the Bucs seem to put up yardage and points on pretty much everybody not named Bill Belichick in the New England Patriots defense. So, but Renfrow has had a nice floor. So, yeah, if you're in a deep pinch or a pinch in a deep league, then yeah, I mean, Renfrow's okay. I just don't expect him to blow up this week.
No, for sure. And I mean, I do like Henry Ruggs in terms of their receivers more, but he is listed as questionable and did not fully participate in practice this week. So just an injury to keep an eye out for that. If he does sit out, I do like Renfrow for that reason.
Cool. So what are we looking at? I mean, the Falcons are coming back. Obviously, if you have
Cordero Patterson is back to save my running backs.
Cordero Patterson is back.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, God.
It's exciting. He's really, I mean, we talked about him a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah,
and,
no, it's insane the floor that he's had this season. It's ridiculous. This is not something that any one of us going into the year thought, who's going to be probably finishing in top 5 running backs this season. Cordero Patterson. Everyone would be like, is he in the league? Like, they'd be like, are you huffing glue? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, no. But actually, he's been fantastic. Outside of week 1 against the Eagles, where he only had 7 attempts with 54 yards, he's just blown it up. And they've gotten him used in the passing game, which has almost made Mike Davis just completely non-usable. Just the way that they have him on used in every type of play, every type of scheme. Is it just, he's just that fine wine that's finally aged right, and you can finally pop open the bottle of Cordero Patterson week in and week out this year?
It's not.
This is his year?
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, you're talking about popping open a bottle of Cordero Patterson that's been aged fine. You didn't even buy him as a running back when he came into the NFL. He was drafted in the first round as a wide receiver by the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah. And it's not very often a player has their breakout party at the age of 30 at a different position than they originally played coming into the NFL. This is not common, but when you look at the skill set and you look at how comfortable Cordero Patterson is, not only catching the ball out of the backfield, which again, that's kind of the prerequisite to being able to catch the damn football if you're coming into the NFL as a wide receiver. So we knew that he had those type of skills, but he looks pretty damn comfortable carrying the football between the tackles. It's not like they just throw him on toss sweeps or anything. Yeah. Patterson's a big boy who breaks tackles and is very dangerous through contact. And the fact that the Falcons continue to find themselves kind of playing from behind, and, they're devoid of Julio Jones, and Calvin Ridley's also, been out of the lineup. He stepped away for personal reasons.
I think he's back this week.
I know he's back, but I'm just saying that he missed a game. It's all lended itself to Matt Ryan needs dependable options. And right now he is clicking with Cordero Patterson. And, of course we're not supposed to see this coming. This is just what?
No, you're just grateful if you managed to grab him off the waiver wire, because I'd love to see, please, at me on Twitter, at Samantha Arhold, if you drafted him before the season started. This is way before any of this was known. If you drafted him, please at me with your receipts. I need to see this, because I got him off waivers in multiple leagues, and because I was just looking for a warm body. My running backs all got hurt so early this season. What? This is the 1 year, and we've talked about this strategy a lot, Tate, and you've always tried to convince me of it. This is the 1 year that's going to actually push me to go 0 RB next season.
I see. It really just depends on where you picked, though. I mean, you're right. Dalvin Cook down, Christian McCaffrey down. So we're looking at what probably the number 1 and number 2 picks in quite a few leagues, not every league, but quite a few.
Yeah.
And now it's just something that you're not supposed to see that type of stuff coming. And, it's just proves that the running back position can be kind of volatile to invest in early, even though you'd like how your team looks on draft day, but it seems as if running backs are far more frequent to miss time than wide receivers or tight ends or anything like that, that you're trying to build the core of your team around. So
definitely. Let's talk about one tight end before we move on to any of the last players that we have that we just love this week in their matchups. Kyle Pitts had a fantastic week against the Jets in London before the bye. He had a touchdown. He had 9 catches on 10 targets and over 100 yards. He had 119 yards, which is finally kind of what we all hoped Kyle Pitts to have. But building off of that game, going against Miami, do you like this matchup for him to meet somewhere near those numbers? Can people have the hope that Kyle Pitts is going to be what they hoped he would be?
I think that you need to still temper your expectations. Look, Pitts is all world talent wise. We know this, right? I mean, he's probably, I think he's the best pass catching prospect at tight end that I've ever seen come out of the NFL draft. He is that highly touted, and for good reason. And it was on display when we last saw him back in what was it now, week 5. So I am encouraged to see that he can just flat out dominate and live up to his draft status and draft stock. That being said, it's still one of the toughest positions in the National Football League. is it possible, Sam, that light bulb has went off and clicked? Yes. And is Matt Ryan, but also Calvin Ridley didn't play in week 5, right? So some of those targets probably filtered his way, that maybe that kind of, brings him back down to earth a little bit. I would just temper those expectations. But if you drafted him in like the 4th or 5th round because of his overwhelming potential, then you have to be encouraged. And of course, you're starting him this week.
Yeah. No, definitely have to start him. And I do think that part of the reason why he had such an amazing week was because multiple players were out and didn't make the trip to London. Calvin Ridley and Russell Gage, for that matter, did not make the trip.
What I'm super excited about is Dallas Goedert with Zach Ertz now in Arizona. That's the tight end I'm super excited about. I know that he didn't play last week because of COVID, but that's the guy that I've been waiting since he came into the National Football League to really have an opportunity to be the main tight end and not lose snaps, not lose targets. Goddard is the one that I really, really hope takes a significant step into that top 5 tight end stratosphere, because I've thought that he has that written all over him since he came into the National Football League as far as a pass catching prospect. And now it's just going to be very hard to predict, because Jalen Hurts continues to hurt my brain, pun intended, as far as his inconsistency across the board. But yeah, I mean, certainly the opportunity now is going to be there for Dallas Goedert.
No, definitely going to have the opportunities there. But I also like Zach Ertz with Arizona. I mean, they have so many weapons that they've been utilizing. But before Max Williams went down, he had some amazing games with Kyler Murray as well. He was getting to his tight end position quite frequently and often. So I feel like Zach is going to have a good floor for a tight end in a league where tight ends are, outside of the top 2, to expect to like blow out every week. He's going to give you a decent floor.
Well, not immediately. I expect
not immediately, but it's going to happen.
Take a little time. I think it's going to take a little bit of time for him to get, fully ingratiated into the offense.
I like the matchup though. They're against Houston.
I'm not starting him this week.
I
mean, if you want to start him this week, then
in a deep league with tight end premium,
you are bold.
I'll be bold.
You are bold, ma'am. I am not starting.
I will be bold.
I am not starting Zach Ertz this week. But if you do,
I don't have him in any leagues. I can't be bold.
Neither do I. So neither of us are starting him. But you go ahead. When you're listening to this, if you want to start Zach Ertz this week, I'm Derek Tate to say exercise caution.
Exercise caution. Let those demons get exercised for us to see a couple targets before you throw him in. I get it. I'm just saying, I don't think he's washed. I think that this is a good.
Oh, he's definitely not washed.
I definitely think this is a good fit for him to get fully utilized, because they were going back and forth in Philadelphia way too much. Let's let them each have their one tight end and just move on with it.
I'll say that if we're putting money on who scores more fantasy points from this point on, Zach Ertz or Dallas Goedert, I'm going Dallas Goedert. There's the reason being is Kyler Murray's a far better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, but he has far more options.
He does have a couple too many weapons, sure.
So, and as far as there in Philadelphia, I mean, outside of Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts needs someone to throw the football to, and I think Goddard's going to be a big part of that moving forward.
All right. Any other players that you like this weekend or matchups that in particular that stand out to you?
I mean, I personally, if you have Darrell Henderson, I'm super high on him this week against Detroit. So
definitely love that matchup.
Fire him in, and if you're in a pinch at quarterback, I actually think Jameis Winston. I don't like saying that, but I'm saying Jameis Winston is a viable option against the Seattle Seahawks. Just because the Seahawks defense has still been giving up a lot of yards. I know that they've shown a little bit more signs of life recently, but make no mistake that they can definitely be had on the back end. And Winston coming off one of his best games prior to the bye week. I'm interested to see what Sean Payton can dial up with an extra week to prepare against the Seahawks defense.
So then would you also say you liked Marquez Callaway this week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would also, Callaway, someone that certainly I would be intrigued to pair up on a bye week and with all the other injuries we kind of talked about. So Callaway Winston stack is one that I'm good with.
Okay, cool. Love that. All right. Well, guys, don't forget to check out WinView Games. Check out their Thursday night matchups against the Browns and the Broncos. WinView.tv/doc. They will match up to $100 when your first deposit. That is a fantastic matchup. Please go ahead and check them out. Again, that's WinView.tv/doc. And check us out for all our other content, seasonal and DFS tools, as well as premium access to our staff for all your fantasy sports questions in the members only Discord right here at drroto.com. Have a great weekend, and I hope you guys all get the win.
Until next time, later, says the Tater. Bye-bye.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well,